When talking about building back better but different, it is essential to reflect on what we have been doing so far. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted just how vital water, sanitation, and hygiene is for us humans. The water, sanitation, and hygiene sector, also known as the WASH sector, not only holds the potential to reduce diseases that plague humankind, but they also hold the ability to shift gender dynamics in a society significantly. And this is mainly because roles around WASH tend to be highly gendered. It comes as no surprise to us that women tend to be the household managers in charge of all WASH related needs. Such is the case mostly in rural areas where the burden of all WASH activities of the family falls solely on women. Women's socially prescribed gender roles around WASH, such as fetching water, cleaning sanitation facilities, maintaining the hygiene of family and household, all of these fall under the unpaid care work being done by them every single day. According to the UN, women spend 3 times as many hours as men doing unpaid care work. This means that majority of the unpaid care work around the house is being done by women, if not all of it is done by women. So, given the fact that women tend to hold majority of the roles around WASH, it only makes sense that they are chosen as the primary target for any WASH interventions. After all, if you want to see behavior change around WASH, you have to target the ones who are responsible for such behaviors in the first place. But when does making women sole target of such interventions go wrong? Well, to understand that, first we must understand how WASH campaigns work. Well, interventions around WASH require certain triggering of emotions to create specific behavior change. Campaigns tend to rely on triggering certain emotions of their audiences amongst their audiences so that they adopt proper sanitation behaviors. For example, community-led total sanitation, also known as CLTS, is an approach where they rely on shock, disgust, and shame as triggering factors to create desired sanitation behaviors. For example, they do this by making the participants realize that by defecating in the open, they are basically ingesting each other's feces. Yes, sanitation WASH campaigns can get really dirty. But CLTS is not what I want to talk about today. This was just an example of how triggering works to make participants or audiences adopt improved sanitation behavior or WASH related behaviors. So my main concern today is to understand the kind of triggers that are being used by some of the WASH campaigns and what messages these triggers could be giving out. So let's look at some of the WASH campaigns that have taken place recently. So this is a sanitation campaign in South India called Super Amma, which means super mother when translated into English from Hindi. This campaign recognized nurture as a motivational or a trigger factor to create behavior change. So the woman in this picture is a fictional character called Super Amma, and she is meant to be an aspirational figure for rural Indian mothers. In this picture, Super Amma is a mother who teaches her son the importance of hand washing with soap as a part of good manners, and as a result, the son becomes a very successful young man. Here is another hand wash campaign by Oxfam called Mom's Magic Hands, which took place in the Philippines, Pakistan, and Nepal. In this campaign, emotion and health were recognized as a trigger factor. The message of this campaign was that mothers nurture their kids against all odds. Their magic hands care for the children. Thus, washing those magic hands can prevent their children from getting ill. So, as you can see in this picture, The mother's good habit of washing her hands with soap inspired her daughter to grow up to become very successful. And finally, here is an example of another sanitation campaign, hand wash campaign by Lifebuoy called Help a Child Reach 5. This took place in India and Kenya. And in this campaign, emotion was recognized as a trigger factor to create behavior change. So, in this campaign, expecting mothers were shown videos of their future daughter at the age of 7, where the daughters thanked their mothers for adopting good sanitation and hygiene habits by washing their hands while the children were little. And the mother's use of such good habits enabled the child to grow up and become who they are today, that they can see on the TV. And that is basically how this video experiment encouraged expecting mothers to adopt hand washing with soap habits, so that their children can live up to the age of 5 and beyond. This experiment was conducted both in India and Kenya. So, what do all of these campaigns have in common? Yes, all of these campaigns do reflect the importance of hand washing with soap, but these campaigns talk about something else as well. Super Amma, Mom's Magic, Hands, and Help a Child Reach 5. All of these campaigns reflect the idea of what it means to be a good mother. In all three campaigns, the idea of the ideal mother was represented in order to convince the audience, in order to convince other women to adopt the proper sanitation habits of washing their hands with soap. All the while, the presence of a father figure or any male caregiver for that matter was largely absent. In all three campaigns, women were targeted solely for the intervention. And these are just a few examples of many other campaigns that rely on this kind of communication strategy. This is a problem. Although these campaigns may have been able to create positive behavior change and reach their end goal, these interventions either knowingly or unknowingly drive the narrative of what it means to be a good mother, and that a good mother is the one who is responsible for her family's improved hygiene practices, and that the hygiene responsibility of a child is solely women's work. Imagine the impact of these campaigns that go into communities and into countries and communities that have such patriarchal gender roles and relations that women tend to do majority of the unpaid care work because society deems it so. And campaigns that are national or international coming into these scenario and then reinstating those cultural stereotypes, the impact of that can be detrimental, because these campaigns inadvertently fuel the gender and cultural stereotype of what it means, of what a woman's work means, and that it is solely a woman's job to make sure her child is successful and healthy. Although seeking to create positive behavior change, these campaigns can end up inadvertently fueling gender stereotypes and further burdening women who already bear the brunt of unpaid care work, subject them to gender stereotypes, and also limit their abilities to challenge patriarchal gender roles and relations. Wash sectors hold immense potential to improve the state of women and girls. Wash campaigns improve access to resources that enable women to avoid violence, improve their literacy, pursue financial independence, among others. But wash campaigns can be so much more than that. Wash campaigns can be a pathway to empowerment and realizing gender equality for women and girls. Simply increasing access to resources is not enough if we want to uplift the status of women, especially in marginalized communities. These things will not work. as long as we directly or indirectly relate all wash activities as women's domain and increase the burden of unpaid care work. My message today is simple. I do not insinuate in any way, shape, or form that these campaigns are ineffective or that these campaigns should not target women for interventions. As I stated in the beginning of this talk, as primary caregivers or resource users, they need to be targeted in order to create the behavior change that's necessary for the WASH campaigns to be successful. However, we also need to reflect on the potential downside of such campaigns that focus on gender-specific target and use gender stereotypes as trigger points for change. So, the next time we see a sanitation campaign, we need to think to ourselves, what are the underlying assumptions that these campaigns are trying to reflect? And we should also ask ourselves this. In the name of replicating cultural realities of the places we are trying to give intervention to, are we feeding into the gender stereotypes and making those stereotypes stronger? In the name of promoting human health, are we also harming gender roles and relations? As the discourse around WASH is at an all-time high due to COVID-19 and many WASH campaigns are emerging, it is essential now more than ever to reflect on what we have been doing so far. All WASH campaigns need to be gender transformative without losing their impact and effectiveness. This means that they need to promote shared responsibility within households in all the campaigns that they do. Because even in campaigns that solely focus on health, for example, the campaigns I spoke about above, where their main aim is to talk about the health of a child, these campaigns also indirectly reflect gender roles and relations. So, if we are to ever see a gender equal future post-pandemic, post-COVID, we must understand the fine line between targeting women as primary users of resources versus targeting women and reinforcing gender stereotype of what a woman's work entails. Thank you.